Welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast, featuring inspiring interviews with Etsy shop owners, hosted by Ijama Elazu.
Hi, and welcome to the Etsy Conversations podcast. I'm your host, Ijama, and I thank you for joining me for another episode. This week, we're crossing the pond again. My guest is Danial Rees, and he runs the Etsy shop Zebrano Wood Craft. I found Danial as I was trolling around watching videos on YouTube, which, if you haven't guessed yet, I do quite often. And so when I come across interesting videos and people that really grab my attention, I can't help but reach out to them. So Dan, thank you so much for being my guest and welcome to the podcast.
No problem. Thank you very much for having me.
Oh, you're so welcome. So before we start, can I have you just tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do?
Yes. My name is Danial Rees. I'm a 30-year-old hairy Welshman, and I specialize in creating bent wood rings and custom wedding rings, basically, on Etsy.
Yeah. By the way, can I say your hair is fantastic?
Thank you.
I actually paused some of the frames when you would turn around in your videos to look at the back. And so for anyone who hasn't seen Danial, he has really long dreads. And
I've had them for 15 years now. So
I was going to ask, 15, and you've never cut them, huh?
I've cut them a few times. They get it rains a lot in the UK, and it gets pretty heavy when they get wet.
Oh, okay. Cool deal. Yes, I like them. So let's talk about Etsy. When did you first discover the world of Etsy, and what made you want to sell on Etsy?
Oh, wow. Well, I started out as just kind of as a hobby with one of my friends. We were making kind of larger woodworking projects with like reclaimed wood, so pallet wood and bits and bobs we found around the place. And somebody mentioned to me, "Oh, you should sell those on Etsy." Mm-hmm. And I was like, I had no idea what it was. And then I found the site. I had a bit of experience from selling on eBay. Okay. And then I just fell down the rabbit hole, really. So it started out with selling kind of larger items, big picture frames and mirrors. Mm-hmm. And then just one day I was like, if I could sell small things, I could fit into a tiny package, mm-hmm. then I can send them all over the world. And that's when I found wooden rings, basically, on Etsy. And I just fell in love. I was just like, I need to make some of those. They look amazing. Yeah. And then it just went from there, really.
Now, how are you self-taught? Did all this just come naturally to you, or did you study how to make these rings? Because they're so unique and they look just fantastic.
Oh, amazing. Thank you. No, I'm completely self-taught. I actually just watched a few YouTube videos and found some tutorials online, and just kind of took what I learned from there, and then through a process of trial and error and hours and hours and hours, making sawdust at my kitchen table, I just sort of got them up to a decent standard, really.
Yeah. When did you know that they were good enough to sell?
I was quite brazen, to be honest. I remember I started out and I already had the Etsy shop anyway. And like we sold kind of like rustic woodworking stuff. So it was all kind of rough around the edges. Yeah. So I thought, if I start selling a few rings that are not necessarily perfect, it kind of fits in. So I just sort of listed them like as soon as I got even semi-competent. And well, luckily, some people liked them and bought them somehow.
So from day one, when you sold them, no one ever said, this isn't perfect. This isn't what I wanted. They were happy.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I was always good at like managing expectations from the start. Okay. So, I mean, now after I will have had my Etsy shop full time for nearly 4 years. So I think it's 4 years in July.
Wow.
But when I was starting out, I mean, like now I'm selling things towards like the higher end of the market. My rings are up there with like the more expensive kind of end. Whereas when I started out, I knew that they were a little bit rough. So I
Yeah.
kind of started at the bottom basically. So yeah,
Okay.
they've always been fairly priced to kind of how good they were, I
Yeah.
felt anyway.
So at what point did you make that conscious decision to move into the higher end pricing range? Was it when you just felt comfortable enough with the rings that you were making, or was there something else that triggered that switch for you?
Well, it was a combination of my own confidence as
Mm-hmm.
well as I've always let the market kind of dictate how much I can sell my jewelry for, if
Okay.
that makes sense.
Yeah.
So I'd say, for example, I started out selling them at like 30 to 50 pounds, and then I'd get a load of orders and I'd kind of just bump the price up a little bit, and
Mm-hmm.
then I'd get a bit better and I'd push them up a little bit.
Yeah.
And I remember it just got to a point where I think like my best seller at the time, I was selling them for like £140, and I just had so many orders that I just couldn't deal with it. And I was just thought, you know what? I'm not going to get this stressed out again. I'm
Yeah.
not going to, you know, I'm not going to sacrifice this much time to make so little money.
Mm-hmm.
So I just put my prices right up, and I just thought that's the end of my business. No one's going to buy rings for that much.
Yeah.
But luckily they did. And if anything, pricing my rings at the higher end of the market was actually a really positive thing,
Yeah.
because it kind of gave me the justification to spend the right amount of time on each piece
Yes.
and make sure it was absolutely perfect, and really kind of get to explore the craft and make sure that my skills were right up there.
Yeah.
And also kind of it kind of weeded out a lot of like the more difficult customers, shall we
Yes.
say.
Yes. I love that you just said that, because I think all the reasons, well, I shouldn't say all the reasons, all the fallout, not in a bad way, that you experienced from increasing your prices are everything I've heard that are reasons for increasing your prices. One, you weed out trouble customers. So the
Yeah.
people who want something for almost nothing but
Yeah.
will probably never be happy,
Yeah,
you get rid of them.
definitely. Yeah, definitely.
And then you're encouraged to put more effort into your product and make it even better, because as a good business person, you know that when somebody spends a certain amount of money, they expect a certain level of quality. And so you have more of a, what's the word, drive or an incentive to make your
Yeah.
product better, because they are paying for a better product.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely.
So I'm glad that you did that, and you, well, I shouldn't say you, but I've heard that, yes, when you get so busy that the time you're spending isn't worth the money you're getting, it's either time to quit or raise your prices.
Well, yeah, definitely. Well, I'd always go for raise the prices first.
Of course, yes. Yes. And it's always good when the market responds, to that. Now, I have another question. Is every ring you make absolutely unique? So when you make it once, you never make it again?
No, I have like a core, I suppose, a product line of
Okay.
rings that I make. And then people can just order them in their size and their preferred width. So in a way, yes, they
Okay.
are all unique, but they'll be like the same design, like say a rosewood ring with a guitar string in it.
Okay.
And not, maybe 20 or 30 people will order that ring throughout the year. But
Okay.
I also I do a lot of custom orders as well. So somebody might find a certain ring And then, they might have like a sentimental type of material that they'd like to include in the ring, or they might want an engraving, or they might like to change the design or something. So I do a lot of custom orders as well.
Okay. And all the more reason to charge premium pricing too for that.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
So now I have a question about the product itself. They're all wooden rings. Are they breakable?
Well, obviously a wooden ring will take a lot more loving than a metal ring.
Yeah.
But that's the reason for the price is I put all of my effort into making them as durable as possible.
Okay.
So I use, not to get into the complicated details, but I use they call it the bent wood method, which is where the wood is wrapped. So the direction of the grain kind of runs around the outside of the ring, which kind of eliminates breaking points. So they're very structurally sound. And then I use like a really durable waterproof finish on the outside of the ring as well. So yeah, I mean, they can last for a lifetime as long as you don't, go doing deadlifts or boxing matches, bar fighting.
Okay. Yeah, I'm so intrigued by them. That's why I'm curious. That's good to know, because I thought, oh, what if someone drops it or bangs it against something? Will it withhold?
Well, honestly, I polish them up to like such a high finish sometimes that they are like quite slippery. So I quite often drop them on the floor and they just tend to bounce around the workshop.
Okay. Good to know.
Probably shouldn't go advertising that. Drop your wedding ring.
Now, so when you originally opened your Etsy shop, you were running it with someone else. Then did you take over the shop completely by yourself? Or did you open Zebrano Wood Craft separately?
Well, basically, I mean, it was me and a good friend of mine, Chris. And I mean, I wanted to go more towards like the making small jewelry items. And he liked making bigger things, basically. So we kind of just separated ways. And I'd always run the Etsy shop. So I was like, if I can just keep hold of the shop, because obviously we've built up like a little bit of a following and we've had a few sales and some customers. And then I helped him to make his own shop then as well. But he's since closed that down because he basically enjoys his job.
Okay. And speaking of jobs, you do this full time. This is how you make your living.
Yep.
At what point did you make the transition, and when did you know that was the right time to leave paid employment and become your own employer?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Well, at the time I was living in a place, it was like the rent was quite expensive. So I was sort of like working a full-time job for a bit. And then we started the Etsy shop and then I started to sell quite a bit. And then I kind of scaled it back to part-time work. And it just got to the point where I was working in a call center and it was honestly like a living hell for 8 hours a day. And it just got to the point where I'd be sitting there and like I'd be coming into work with like packages to go off and send during my lunch break. So I'd be like, I'd be sitting there and people like the manager of the office would come over and be like, oh, what have you made this week? And I was like, oh, I made this ring for £200. I made this ring for £100, this for 150. And it was like getting to the point where like I was making way more money in my side gig than the actual job. So I just thought, hey, we eventually moved houses as well to another place. And I had my workshop in the house at the time. So I kind of timed it with, we moved house, I set up the workshop, and then I quit my job. So like it was a really nice transition. It was so amazing to go full time. I'm very lucky. Yeah. Grateful every day.
I love that. So you traded the office for your workshop.
Yes. Yeah.
Now, so how do your days look now? What does a typical day in the life of Dan look like running your business full time?
Yeah. Well, I normally wake up. My girlfriend works with horses, so she's always up at like 6:30 in the morning.
Huh.
So I wake up really early. I'll normally check a few emails, answer any inquiries that come through in the nighttime,
Yeah.
and then get off to the workshop and process any orders for the day. I'll normally try and make either 1 or 2 rings a day, and then at the end of the day, get off to the post office, post my orders, get to the gym, come home, eat, sleep, and repeat, basically.
Sleep and repeat. Now, do you try to segment what you do each day? So do you have time that you set aside specifically for coming up with new designs, and then time that you set aside maybe specific days of the week or times during the day for just making, and then time for administrative activities, and then post office runs, etc.?
Do you know what? I'm absolutely terrible. So no, I actually don't. I kind of I just go with the flow, if anything. It's kind of difficult to describe. Like, I mean, for like someone who's like an artist, like if you're a painter, you can't always guarantee like between 9 and 4 o'clock I'm going to be creative.
Yes.
You know, you might sit there and not want to do anything for 4 or 5 hours, watch some YouTube videos, and then you just kind of you're just grinding your gears. Whereas then like it might be midnight, everyone else has gone to bed, and you think, oh, I must paint.
Yeah.
So it's kind of the same thing. I feel.
Yeah.
There are just some times where I need to rest, or sometimes where I'm more creative on like the business side of things, or other times where I just want to be in the workshop with just music on, phone off, just making things. So yeah, it just depends really. I'm quite lax with my time management.
Yeah.
Much to my girlfriend's chagrin.
Yeah, you show all the signs of a true creative. I mean, I know we don't like order. Well, that type of order. It's just the spirit isn't moving me in that direction right now. I can't.
Exactly. Yes. Yeah. That's it.
What inspires you when you're creating? How do the ideas and concepts for new designs come to you?
Well, that's a good question. That's a really good question. I don't know. They just come from the ether, I guess. They just materialize. No, I mean, I spend a lot of time like on Instagram, and I love it there because you can really like become part of like a community.
Yeah.
So there are, quite a large group of other ring makers who I see working in some in wood, some in other mediums like metal or silver or gold, or glow in the dark stuff, or weird things. So I kind of I consume a lot of throughout the day, really, like a lot of inspiration on that level.
Yeah.
And then I might see other things like from other crafts, like for example, I follow like a pen making company. They make like calligraphy pens.
Oh yeah.
Which is something you might be interested in.
Yes.
They're called the Yoke Pen Company, and they just make the most beautiful like yoke pens, like calligraphy pens. And I might see them using a technique on a pen that I just think, that would look amazing on a ring, or something. Just like it's kind of weird. It just kind of comes from all different directions, really,
Yeah. And that makes sense, because I know I like to ask that question, and everyone's inspiration comes from different places. One person I asked once said, well, when I'm on the train, I just look at what people are doing and I get ideas for what I could create for that person. I'm like, oh, really? When I'm on the train, I sleep.
Yeah. Well, another thing as well is like a lot of the time, like, the customer will already have like an idea of what they want.
Yeah.
So they'll kind of come in and they'll say like, oh, I found these 3 examples of a ring. I've got this element that I want to include. Can you make something with this? So like sometimes I get some weird stuff in the post, like people sending me like dinosaur teeth and bits of
Oh.
old trees that they cut down. I had a
Oh.
request for someone wanted rings made with an exploded landmine case.
Oh my
It's crazy,
word.
it's all sorts of different things. So it's kind of a constant challenge to come up with ideas and work people's elements into their rings. I love it. It's fun.
Yeah. So people can actually send you things that they want incorporated into a ring.
Yeah.
Is there any is there anything you will not work with? Any material you
Uh,
won't work with?
yeah, I've had requests for rings made of human bones.
Oh,
So
okay. Yep.
I drew the line there.
Yep.
No human remains, please. Beard, hair, nothing bodily.
Okay. Yes. Yeah. There's the line right there.
But no,
Okay.
there are some things that are just ethical as well. Like
Yeah.
I don't want to use like blood diamonds or
Yes.
anything that was, can you melt down this ring I stole? Like, no, nothing too unethical like
Yeah.
that.
You're like, yeah, send it to me and I'll call the authorities.
Yeah.
So now let's talk about pricing.
Mhm.
Well, we actually already did talk about pricing. So you pretty much use the market to help you determine. Have you ever hit a price point where you changed your pricing to a certain amount and then sales grinded to a halt and so you backtracked? Or so far have your prices just trended with the market and you haven't hit that point where the market is resisting?
No, I haven't hit that point, thankfully.
That's great.
I mean, there are companies at the really high end who will charge like double or even triple what I do.
Mm-hmm.
So I know that I've got quite a large margin, really. So
Okay.
yeah, I kind of I don't think that point will come for a really
good.
long time.
Yeah. Now, in the almost 5 years that you've been selling on Etsy, have you ever had to deal with any negative customer experiences, either complaints or they weren't happy or bad reviews?
Oh dear, I've got a video about this actually.
You do? Okay.
Um, well, I'm normally pretty chilled. Sorry.
Uh-huh.
I'm normally pretty chilled. I mean, like I make rings, and fingers are notoriously difficult to get sized correctly.
Yeah.
So they're quite often where people will like, they ordered a ring size, but it's too tight or it's too loose, or they order a ring and then they lose weight and then it doesn't fit anymore. So
Oh,
there's
right.
always like sizing issues, which I'm always really happy to resolve. Normally I just exchange the ring for free if postage is covered.
Mm-hmm.
But I'll be honest, I've been really lucky because most of my customers, or the like 99.999%, are really like understanding. Like if I'm a bit late with something, if I get ill or something, I could just explain, hey, I'm late by a week because I've been ill or something's come up. And they are normally very supportive and they leave great feedback, which is awesome.
Yeah.
But I did have one incident, I think it was last year sometime, which just completely like blew me off my feet because I got the notification on my phone like, oh, so-and-so has left you feedback. And I'm so used to seeing like 5-star reviews. I think I've had like maybe 1 4-star.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I opened my phone and it was like a 2-star review.
Ouch.
And I was like, oh my God, I had no idea. I was just like, it completely like took me aback. And then I read the review and it was like, oh, you could tell that it wasn't my fault.
Yeah.
It was like the customer obviously had a really bad day. Like it was, I'm not going to go into it too much, but it was like she basically had broken up with her boyfriend like the day that she gave him the ring.
The ring you made?
Yeah. And
Oh, no.
she just obviously was just like, this is all your fault. And I was like, whoa, it's not my fault. I was like, I'd be happy to give you a refund or anything. But
Yeah.
I pretty much, I made a public reply like straight
Yes.
away.
Mm-hmm.
I think I might have had a cup of coffee and I just calmed down. I was like, how very dare she leave me a 2-star review? So I went off, I had a cup of coffee, and I came back and I like replied like this really like, professional, chilled out reply, like any issues you have, we could resolve them and everything. And I addressed every single thing she said. But what I didn't realize was if you make a public reply to like a 1 or 2-star review on Etsy, that means that the person can never change the review. So that's on my shop forever now, unfortunately. But in the video I made, I said like, message the person first, because I think they have like 60 days to change their review or something like that.
Yeah.
So it's always worth like resolving the issues first, make them a happy customer again. And I feel like they'd probably come back and change it more to like a 3 or a 4-star review.
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm stuck with a 2-star review on my shop. But if anyone goes and reads it, it's actually quite funny to read. And you see my reply, and it's just anyone can tell that is like, it's not the norm, basically.
Yeah. I'm going to go hunt that down and read that later. But yes, thank you for bringing that up, because I don't know if everyone is aware of that. If you get, I believe it's 3 stars or less feedback, you have the opportunity to respond in a message to the person who left that feedback. But as Dan said, if you respond to it there in the feedback thread, then the buyer cannot go back and change their feedback and give you more stars. And so I believe that's Etsy's way of giving you an opportunity to make things right. Now, you can't always make things right with everyone. There are just some people you can't. But more often than not, you can make things right. And then typically, once a person feels like they've been made whole, they can go back and change their review, and then it's all good.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like after like a day or two anyway, I sent the girl a message, and I just said like, hey, I completely understand.
Yeah.
Your feedback is really valued, and I take everything on board. So, I thanked her, and she came back like a few days later, and she was like, "Oh, look, I'm really sorry. I was having a bad day, and I would love to change the review anyway." So she would have, but she could have. So, well, whatever.
Learning lesson. Okay, so let's talk about promoting your Etsy shop. And this was actually one of the very first videos of yours I saw on YouTube. You had a video called 3 Things You Can Do Every Day to Get More Sales on Etsy. I'm going to post that in the notes for this episode so others can watch. And you shared what you do to promote your Etsy shop. 3 things, it was very simple, and they're working for you. So let's talk about promoting your shop. What do you do to get eyeballs in your store, and more importantly, to get actual sales?
Yeah. I can't remember what I said in the video now.
Okay, what do you do?
I think like perhaps 1 or 2 of the things I mentioned in that video maybe not so relevant anymore, because I mentioned like renewing listings. But I don't think that quite works the same since search changed.
Yeah.
But it's still a good thing to do. But really, I think the large majority of my traffic and customers come through search engine optimization. So SEO has been like the most important pillar of my Etsy shop. And then I think secondly is I'd probably say like social media, like particularly Instagram. Like I said, I think that at this stage, like I'm part of quite a big community of other makers. I've got like nearly 12,000 followers on there, so I get a lot of customers through that as well. And also then through like creating content. So like you already mentioned, I have my YouTube channel, and sometimes I write blogs or publish articles on instructables.com. And that, publishing like DIY tutorials probably isn't the most intelligent business decision I ever made.
Why?
Well, I mean, I've trained a lot of competition for myself,
Okay.
but but at the same time, it kind of sets you up as like a bit of a voice in the industry, and also like lots of people will see those videos who they probably don't have a lathe or a workshop or even the inclination to go and make something that elaborate, but they just kind of wanted to watch something being made, and all of a sudden you're on their radar and they follow you.
Yeah.
And I mean, like, it's just all about consistently, like, just putting out your message and your work, really, and just showing what you can do.
Yeah.
I used to work in advertising in another life. I was a salesperson for a magazine, and one of the things that they said was, like, the big companies, they understand that it normally takes like 20 interactions with you and a brand before you take action on like their sales
20?
message. Yeah, so for example, between 10 and 20. So like it might be that like you're heading to work and you're still at the bus station, and then like you see a poster saying like, get a Diet Pepsi. So that's number one. And then you might be walking through the supermarket and you see a magazine with a Diet Pepsi advert. Then you see the Diet Pepsi cans. Then you might see an advert on TV, and then like you might see it like advertised like on a billboard somewhere, and then before you know it, like you're walking on the street like, oh, I could really do with a Diet Pepsi.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's kind of like the similar thing. Like I just think if you've got like someone on Instagram and they follow you for like 6 or 7 months, they might see like 20 or 30 of your posts, and then they might go like, oh, I've got this birthday coming up, or I'm getting married, or Christmas is coming, and you're in their mind then. So I don't know, that's probably a pretty dark and insidious way of thinking about things.
Right. No, but it makes sense. It makes sense because essentially you're saying you put yourself out there enough and get into people's consciousness or subconsciousness so that when the need comes up, you're already in their minds as a resource or a solution for this particular need.
Definitely. Yes. Very eloquently put there.
Well, thank you. So of the social media platforms, which ones do you really focus on and get the most out of?
Yeah, definitely Instagram and Facebook for me personally.
Really?
I think like Instagram has definitely changed a lot over the past like year. But I mean, I remember like this time last year, it was amazing. It was like I was getting so much interaction and so many views from Instagram. But then I think like they had algorithm changes as well, kind of in the last few months.
Yep.
So it's changed quite a bit, but I still, I feel like I have like a group of core followers, and through like hashtagging in the right kind of niches, you can still attract an audience. And I just find it fun. It's just, so easy and so accessible. And you can just scroll through Instagram for hours and just, I follow a lot of people there as well. So like I said, I get a lot of inspiration from other makers. And Facebook as well, like, is kind of a more, I don't have as many followers. I think I only just got 1,000 followers on Facebook a few weeks ago. But I generally get like quite good reactions there. I feel like that's where my super fans come to hang out.
In Facebook?
On Facebook, yeah. Like if someone really wants to follow me, they'll follow me on Facebook.
Okay. So Instagram, we get. You can share pictures, you can share short, quick videos, you can do live sessions. On Facebook, what are you doing? Are you just sharing pictures as well? Or are you doing posts?
Well, to be honest, I'll normally share like the posts I make on Instagram because you can post them automatically.
Yeah.
But like where I publish like YouTube videos, it's a bit easier to actually publish or actually share the YouTube videos on Facebook. I think over this next year, I'll be like trying out some of the other features on Facebook, which I haven't really had much chance to put much energy into, like like Facebook videos. Obviously, you can post videos natively to Facebook now.
Yeah.
Which I feel is a really good way to get like brand awareness and exposure.
Yeah.
And I think like it'd be really cool to experiment with like the live video thing that you can do on there as well. I think that would be really interesting to do, like Q&As or just like little vlogs, like, oh, this week I'm in the studio and I've got a Tyrannosaurus vertebra. I'm going to make it to a ring.
Yes.
Come and watch my live stream or something. Just stuff like that I think would be really fun. If I'm honest though, like the one social media platform that I would really love to crack, but I just can't get my head around, is Pinterest.
Oh, and me both.
I see so many Etsy sellers. Like there was somebody on one of the Etsy Facebook groups the other day, and she was like, "Oh yeah, I get 60% of my traffic from Pinterest."
Yes.
I was like, "Oh my god, like 60%!" And she was asking something like, "Oh, how do I take a photo or something like that to look nice?" And I was like, "You've got 60% of your traffic from Pinterest." There was just loads of people like, "How have you done this?" Yeah. So yeah, I'd love to get into that a bit more, but I don't know, it's beyond me.
Yeah, no, I hear you, because I feel like Pinterest is a mystery, and I feel like I say this a lot, and maybe someone might get tired of hearing me say it, but it's like this mystery.
We're gonna teach you how to do
Yes, I just can't crack it. Like the other platforms are pretty straightforward. Instagram, post pictures or videos, and then hashtag it to infinity. Well, not infinity, but hashtag it, and then you get traction. Facebook, say something, post something, and you get traction. But Pinterest, I'm just like, what? How? Yeah. Why? They're like, oh, there's an aesthetic that, Pinterest pinners like. I'm like, well, what is it? Because I look at it and I just see pictures everywhere.
Yeah.
But
well, it's actually, I started listening to another podcast the other day.
Yeah. Which one?
It's called The Manly Pinterest Show.
Oh yeah, I've heard of it. Okay.
It's really good. Because I think that Pinterest is like it's probably known for being used by females more than males. And it's just this guy, like, his show is quite funny and he has a really good way of presenting things. So actually I have learned quite a few things from his podcast. So yeah, definitely go and check that out. And maybe if I crack the code, I'll come back
and teach
and share my knowledge with you.
Yes. I have heard of that show. I haven't listened to it, but I really should. I'm going to listen to it. And I will also link to it in the notes for this episode. So anyone else who is baffled by Pinterest, like Dan and I, you can go listen to the Manly Pinterest podcast. I had a guest on the podcast earlier in March, Michelle Rohr, and that was episode, I want to say 213, and she uses Pinterest as her primary marketing channel.
Oh, wow.
Yes, and just by focusing solely on Pinterest, she was able to take her Etsy shop from, I think it was she was selling printables from about $50 a month to $2,000 a month consistently, at least.
Wow, yeah, that's impressive. That's just through Pinterest.
Through Pinterest. And
I want a slice of that pie.
I'm going to try and get myself a slice of that pie, because she has a strategy, and she actually put a course together that walks people through how to do it, use Pinterest the way she did to get all that traffic. And it worked for her. And she's not the only one that I know Pinterest has worked for. But what I have found out is that the people who it works for have spent the time and put in the effort to really learn the platform. And I think that's the problem I have, is I haven't put in the time and effort to learn really any platform. I just kind of try and figure things out. And so I think with Pinterest in particular, you can't do it that way. It takes a lot more effort.
Well, I think there's definitely like the thing that annoys me is that I'll put together, like you mentioned, there's like an aesthetic, so kind of like a
Mm-hmm.
long pin,
Yeah.
usually with like, I mean, it's especially good for like DIY kind of things because you can kind of like lay them out like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. There's the
Yeah.
steps, and this is the end product. Put a
Yeah.
bit of like, nice like calligraphy writing on there and some bold writing,
Uh-huh.
and it's a long pin.
Yeah.
Seems to do quite well. And like I'll put one of those together, post it up, post it on a couple of like the group boards,
Uh-huh.
and I'll maybe get like 10 repins. But then I noticed like I was scrolling through like woodworking projects on Pinterest the other day, and somebody else had made like a step-by-step kind of pin of one of my tutorials of Instructables.
Oh.
And I mean, they was linked to my content, so I
Oh,
have no
okay.
problem. So, but they put together the pin and put it out, and they had like 7,000 repins. So I was like, how come when I do it, nobody reprints their stuff, but when these guys do it, they get like thousands. So
Yeah.
I don't mind if you all want to go and make lovely Pinterest pins out of my shop. Crack on. You have my full permission.
Yes. No, I tell you, there's a science to this whole Pinterest thing, and some people have figured it out.
It's interesting. Definitely interesting. I think it's like really cool with like the with the promoted posts. Like if you promote something,
Mhm.
even when the promotion ends, like it will still be getting pins and still be getting shares, and like you don't pay for anything after the promotion period. So I think that's awesome. Like you just get so much more bang for your buck.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, an Instagram post is you post it and it's in people's feeds for like a day maximum. But
Yeah.
with Pinterest, you can post something once and they can potentially be there a year later, which is
Yes.
pretty awesome.
And that's why I really think it's worth putting in the effort, because every once in a while I'll get an email that says somebody pinned your pin. And
Mm.
so then I'll look at it and see what it was they pinned. And it's something I completely forgot that I even did. And I'm like, whoa, how did that was like 2 years ago when I, thought I was, quote, doing Pinterest. And then here somebody finds it and puts it on a board somewhere. I'm like, wow, there's something there.
Yeah, definitely. I think like another thing that's really overrated for Etsy sellers is actually like creating like useful content for your customers. Um, so like blog posts and like videos for YouTube and Facebook. I think that's a really like a great way to get in front of new audiences and present yourself in a professional manner and get onto people's radars. Get
Yes.
into people's consciousness.
Yes.
So definitely like I'd say every Etsy shop should try and either get a blog together or some kind of channel for creating media like videos, because
Yeah.
it's so much fun and it's like massively effective.
Yes, absolutely. And I was actually surprised that when I asked you which social media channels were best, you didn't bring up YouTube,
I
because
just forgot.
I thought, okay,
In hindsight, I would say YouTube. Yeah.
yes, because I was going to say, oh my goodness, if you're doing better on Facebook and Instagram than you are on YouTube, then those two must be phenomenal, because on YouTube, you've set I like that you teach people, you show people what you're doing. You have all these tutorials, and then you also talk about not just how to do what you do, but also selling on Etsy. People ask you questions and you make videos and you respond to them. And that really positions you, like you said, as an authority in not just the woodworking or ring making arena, but also on Etsy, because people ask you questions about selling on Etsy and how you do things, and then you make these videos and you respond, and it makes you an expert and an influencer in that arena, and people find your videos and they watch them, and that just brings more traction to you. And so I think it, like you said, it's something that I do think more Etsy sellers can get into. And if
Yeah,
anyone
definitely.
is
I mean,
worried about oversaturation, don't be, because everybody does their craft differently.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, like, it's not necessarily just all about like if you have an Etsy shop to make videos about how to sell on Etsy or how
Yeah.
to like make the things that you make.
Hmm.
I mean, like it could be more like customer focused. So, for
Hmm.
example, like I'm a ring designer and I have videos planned for like, you know, 10 unique 10 unique materials that you can, or alternative materials you can choose for your wedding ring, or like
Mm.
the 5 most manly wedding rings, or
Yeah.
like, things that are helpful to people. Like if someone's like looking for what you sell,
Yeah.
what content and what questions can you answer for them with your content, if that makes sense.
Yeah. It makes perfect sense. And I like that because yeah, you're thinking outside the box. It's still related to what you do, but it's positioning you in a different light.
Yeah. This is kind of a rabbit hole. I love talking about this stuff. Are you familiar with the Smart Passive Income podcast? A guy called Pat Flynn?
No, never heard of him. No, I'm kidding.
Oh,
Of
well,
course, I know who he.
you must have heard of Pat
Of
Flynn.
course.
But he released a video, it must have been only a couple of weeks ago, and it was called something along the lines of like the number one way to get more followers in 2018. And I'm so going to try this. This is definitely like on my list of things that I'm going to start doing this year. But he basically said like, you have like your niche. Say for example, like, well, I make wedding rings. So
Okay.
he basically said like you choose like 10 influencers or Facebook groups. Let's take the example of Facebook groups. So you'll go to like Facebook groups, find the administrators,
Mm-hmm.
and then send them a message and say like, I'm putting together this article of like 10 tips to find your perfect wedding dress, because it's obviously wedding related.
Okay.
And I'd like to get your input. And then basically the people will say like, oh yeah, from our experience in the group, like we advise this, this, and this.
Okay.
And then you put together the article with 10 different opinions or contributors from 10 different sources.
Mm-hmm.
And then basically you share it, and they're likely to share it as well with their followers.
Yeah.
So then like you've got like one piece of media which you have linked to like other people, but then they will share it, and that obviously links back to you. If that makes sense, you've reached like so many more audiences.
Yes.
And I was like, Pat, that is genius. I'm definitely trying that out. Definitely. So like
yes.
I haven't actually given it a go yet, but yeah, when I come up with some cool content, I'll send you a link and be like, Ajama, I made this.
Yeah. No, please do for sure.
these people.
And it makes sense because one, you're providing something helpful. And it's coming from different people, and it's so like if somebody sends me something that I think is useful, my first instinct is to share it, like, oh, check out what this person did, or check out what's going on here, or read this or watch this. And that's so organic. It doesn't take much time or effort to share something that someone has already put together that's useful. Not just put together to get that traction. And so I like that idea, and I think I will try it. But it does take effort too, because you don't want to just throw something together just to get the links. And I think people can tell if and when you do that. But I like the idea.
Like add value first. Always be like adding value when it comes to content. Definitely. Yeah.
Yes, exactly. The other thing that you mentioned, which piqued my interest, was going live in Facebook. So I have a confession. I just did that I decided in March of last year that I was going to start doing more video, but it terrifies me. So it took me literally a year to actually turn my camera on and do it. And for the first time, on March 1st of this year, 2018, I did a live Facebook stream.
That's like 2 days ago.
Yep, 2 days ago.
Wow.
In my Facebook group. And I felt like I was sweating. I felt like I was just, a grand mess, but it was something that I, a year in, it took me a year to psych myself up to do it. That's how terrified the whole video thing was for me. But the interaction was really good. And so much so a friend of mine, Cliff, was the one who said, you need to just turn the camera on and do it. And he goes, just do it for 15 minutes. And then if after those 15 minutes you think, I really can't do this, I'm going to die if I turn my camera on again, then don't. But do it for 15 minutes and then see how you feel. And I actually made a commitment. I said, okay, every Tuesday and Thursday now going forward, I will do those live sessions. And it's
that's really cool.
To do things like what you're doing. Like, okay, how can we be better at, customer service? How can we do this better? It's not just only about selling on Etsy, but, in the bigger picture, we're running businesses here, and your business is so much more than Etsy. And so my goal is hopefully to just be more helpful.
Yeah, dude, that's really cool. I definitely would like to try with like coming up with some things for, Facebook live groups.
Yeah.
And especially if you can put like a time on it, it's like every Tuesday, I'll be doing this.
Yeah.
Bring a cup of coffee. Let's have a chat. Brilliant.
Yes. I think
That's
you would be excellent at it. I've seen your videos. It's calling your name. Live video is calling your name.
Well, the thing is that when you film it, you can edit out all of like the ums and the ahs and the swear words.
Yeah. Yes, that's true. But I still think you can. Well, I guess it depends on your audience. Some audiences don't mind that. Some audiences do. But I still think that there's something about just being there in the moment with other people and interacting live, like in real time, that it strips away that finesse sometimes that produced, not like yours, but there's some highly produced YouTube channels.
Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yes, and that kind of puts a
raw and personal.
Yeah. It's more personal. Yes, when it's really highly produced, one can feel a bit removed from the person.
Yeah.
But then when it's live and it's you, no makeup, hair not done, t-shirt on, it's just, there's something a bit more, that's a bit easier to connect with. I hope that makes sense.
Definitely. Well, I follow like a lot of the main thing I follow on like YouTube is like fitness YouTubers. I'm always like watching videos about like weight training or like cardio or whatever.
Yeah.
And there's like a few of like the kind of YouTube fitness guys who do it, and it's always really fun, like just to like log in and watch them talk about some stuff or give some people some advice. So it'd be really fun to do that. I mean, I'm not sure necessarily like how much my particular craft is suited to that kind of content, but I'm sure it could be fun. Definitely fun.
Now, the other thing you do that you mentioned is blogging, and that also is another good way to attract traffic, because then you rely on SEO, and not just SEO for Etsy, but search engine optimization for the main search engines like Google, Bing, Yahoo, etc.
Yeah.
And anyone who wants to check out Daniel's website, it is at zebranowoodcraft.com. Do you also sell products? Is that also an e-commerce site, or it's purely just content, videos and blogging?
It's, to be honest, my site has like always been in a state of being under construction. I've never really like fully nailed down like how to build websites, but I put it all together myself, so it's like the best I could possibly do. But no, it's not an e-commerce website. It's mainly content. But you can like click through, and there's like I've got like some plugin that displays my Etsy shop items, and you can click through and go straight to the Etsy shop. Probably not the most effective way to do it, but like it works for now. So
How
And also like
often do you get to blog?
um to be honest, I do it like I'll publish a blog post if I publish like a DIY tutorial.
Okay.
And I used to try and do it like quite frequently, but I've been watching lots of like videos about search engine optimization for Google, and I think that actually, from Google's standpoint, I think that they prefer like you to have, like 20 really good quality, like meaty 2,000 word articles that are really helpful to people looking for whatever your niche is, wherever you're selling, rather than like having like 100 posts that are like 500 words of just, fluff basically.
Oh,
so
yeah.
So I think that coming into this next kind of quarter, I mean, I've got a lot of work to do. Like, I mean, we've been talking on this podcast about Pinterest and Facebook Live videos and writing articles and stuff. So that's another thing that I'd like to do going forward, is like just maybe like strip my website back and just have like 20 to 30 like really, really good informative articles, like helping people out with, like ring sizing or like ring materials, or even if it's just like things that they can do to help them plan their wedding day, or their 30 of the funniest engagement proposals or something, just really good quality content like that.
Yes, absolutely. And I would say go for it. I kind of fell into that by chance. And there are two articles that I wrote. One was maybe 4 years ago now. And the other was about 2.5 years ago now, that till today bring the most traffic to my shop. And these are articles that, one, really didn't have anything to do with Etsy. I was just comparing Creative Bug and Craftsy.
What? Creative
Bug and Craftsy. So they're online sites that have that teach you how to do crafts. And you can subscribe and take classes in, just all types of different crafts. And so,
I've seen them. Yeah, I've seen Craftsy.
Yeah. So I compared it to Creative Bug, and I did that just because I was trying to decide which one I wanted. And so I put together a side-by-side comparison, and then I just put it up on the site. And till today, every single day, I get people finding my site because they're trying to decide. And I don't know what search terms they put in, but something to the effect of Craftsy or Creative Bug, or this one versus that one, or what's the difference between these two? And then they end up on that article.
Well, that's the thing, is like with Google, I mean, it normally takes like quite a while, doesn't it, for like Google to actually like index the pages and figure out where they belong.
Yes.
But I think when you've got it, like that's like nearly evergreen content. If you can put out something really informative and helpful, that can be up there, like you said, for like years, and it can still be bringing you traffic. So
and I'm so amazed. And it wasn't like that year one. I don't even think year two. It's just like the last couple of years that I see just loads of traffic coming from those two articles. So it's a long game.
Yeah, a long game.
Yeah.
It's all about the long game with Google and content in general, I think. But it's definitely worth putting in the time.
Yep.
Because it sets you apart as well. I mean, there could be like 50 or 60 competing shops in your niche. And like, if you're the only one who's got like the fun content and you've got the videos and you do the live stuff, who are people going to go to first?
Yep.
They're going to go to like a competitor whose face they've never seen, or they're going to, are they going to immediately think of you and go, oh, hey,
yeah, absolutely, I know that guy.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now, Dan, I want you to please talk to someone who is listening to this podcast and is struggling on Etsy. They're relatively not new, but they've been selling on Etsy for a while, and with all the changes that are going on, their shop is in upheaval and they just need something fresh to do, what would you say to that person? What advice would you give?
Ooh, that's a good question. I would say knuckle down for one. And just remember, like, if it's hard for you, it's hard for your competitors as well. So, like, I always have this mantra of, like, I just say in my head, like, I will not be outworked. There's like no way. No one's going to outwork me. So just knuckle down, educate yourself, and really especially for Etsy, knuckle down on your SEO, because there have been a lot of changes recently, which, I mean, have affected quite a few people, especially like other UK sellers, because the kind of geography of your shop has come into play a lot more, I feel.
Yes.
So just knuckle down your SEO and, like I said, like, create some content, get some content around your brand that's going to help out potential customers, and people will find you, and you'll start to notice like more traffic, more interactions, and hopefully more sales.
Yes. Thank you. That is great advice. Now, as far as what you're using to help run your business, are there any particular tools or resources that you find particularly helpful in your day-to-day running of your business that you don't mind sharing with us?
Yeah, definitely. I'll just full disclosure. Yeah. I am actually affiliated. I'm an affiliate of Marmalade.
Okay.
But have you seen the new features that Marmalade brought out, like the updates they put out yesterday?
I have not, and you're making me think I need to get them back on the podcast to talk about this. What did they do?
Yeah, get them back. Oh my God, yeah, they brought out like game-changing
really
tools on Marmalade, like the paid version, because now they have like all of the listing information, the keyword information they have comes directly like from Etsy. So you can see how many times a month a particular keyword is searched on Etsy, and it comes directly from them.
Whoa.
And it'll come up with like other, like if you type in like a keyword, it will also come up with suggestions for other keywords that are actually searched on Etsy.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's like
That's
completely
huge.
game changer stuff. Because I think before, like, they did it, but the suggestions came from like Bing or like some Yahoo or something.
Yeah.
And they weren't necessarily always like perfect. But now it's actually from the Etsy platform. And I've just been on there today, and it's like, oh my God, I have a lot of work to do, but this is amazing.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'd say like Marmalade.
Yes.
If for like people who are, I mean, like for my shop, I can afford $20 a month to have that tool, because like, I can easily cover that cost. Okay. But if like you're just starting out, a great SEO tool would be Etsy Rank.
Yes.
That actually saved my shop, I think, last month.
How so?
Etsy Rank. Because I went on there because I was like, Marmalade don't necessarily have like a rank checker anymore. And I don't think it's totally relevant anymore, like a rank checker anyway. But I just wanted to see. And on Etsy Rank, you can like put in a keyword, put in your shop, and then put in your location, and it will like show you if you're in the top 500 listings. So I put in like, I think it was like wooden rings for men, my shop, Zebrano Wood Craft, and then United Kingdom. And like, I didn't show up anywhere. And I was like, this is really weird. Like, how come I'm not in that search? Because I've every time I've ever checked, up until like this year, I've always been like somewhere in the top 500. So I was like, I checked then, like I put in like United States, and I still wasn't in there. But then I changed the location to everywhere, and I was in some spot in the top 500. So I was like, what's going on? I was like, why doesn't Etsy Rank know that I'm in the UK? Because obviously, like, it's quite important for me for Etsy to know where I am, so that like when someone searches for like a wooden ring, that they can, and they're close to me, they can display my listings. So I was kind of like, I was like running around in circles. I was like, what is going on? And then there's like this new little thing on like the Etsy like shop editor, And I think you can like click through to your shop, and then there's like all these little like edit buttons on certain sections.
Yeah.
And just underneath, I think it was like underneath the tagline, it said like the Zebrano Wood Craft, and then there was like a little edit button, and it just said like shop location is not set.
Yes.
So I like clicked on that, put in Worthing, West Sussex, and then like literally the very next day I got a sale, and the traffic came back up. So I was like, Etsy rank. Like, how underrated is Etsy rank? It's free.
Yes.
But I don't think I would have even noticed that for months if I hadn't like checked that. So
yes,
yeah,
I agree.
Check your profile's filled out properly.
Yes, absolutely. I completely agree, and I'm glad you brought that up. And I promise I didn't pay Dan to say that, because it segues perfectly into something else that I'm working on. But yes, the shop location is key, and I know it's something that not a lot of people know matters. And the reason
I never knew that changed.
I'm sorry, what did you say?
I never even knew that had changed. I thought I was
Yes. So I'm working on this resource that I'm creating for sellers that basically, walks people through it's just information. It's all audio podcasts, informational, that people can listen to and just go and do things in the Etsy shop. And one of the ones I just recorded was exactly what you just described, was adding or updating your shop location, because if you don't have that, you're not showing up in searches that you need to be showing up in. And it's something Etsy just implemented, but there wasn't a lot of talk about it. I just know because I read, all this stuff, which you think I have no life, but I do. But I read it and I thought, wait, so if you don't have your shop location, there's so many searches that people are going to do that you're just not going to show up in. And unless somebody does some really, really obscure search, then maybe you'll show up.
Yeah.
And so I did a recording where I said, hey, this is how you add your shop location. You need to do it. It's like 6 minutes. It walks you through how to find where to do update your shop location, and then you're done. And so I haven't launched it yet because I'm just trying to add more to the library.
Oh, mega cool though. That's awesome.
Thanks. Yeah. And so that's what it's for. It's like all these things that, you might miss along the way or not be aware of. I just have these quick audio tutorials saying, hey, go do this, and you're done. And then move on. So yes, Marmalade is $19 a month. That's their entrepreneur plan. They also have a dabbler plan, which gives you access, but limited access to the features that they have. And then if you're not ready yet to commit the $19 a month, you can check out the dabbler plan and just get a peek behind the curtains. You won't be able to do a whole lot, or at least not as much as if you paid, and then decide if you want to upgrade to the entrepreneur plan.
Yeah, the new features on there, they are amazing. So yeah, everyone definitely go and check that out. It's 100% worth it.
Okay, I will link to that, and I'll go check them out myself because I wasn't aware of all the changes. But also Etsy Rank. Etsy Rank is also has a lot of tools, and they're available. I think most of them are available at no cost. And one of the things it's really good for that I found, but I know others who use it, is the shop audits that Dan described. And it will tell you, hey, you're missing this and you need to do this. So it's a nice way to do a self-audit on your shop, signing up for Etsy Rank, which I will link to as well. So thank you for sharing those resources.
No worries.
Now, what's the best way people can get in touch with you if they want to reach out and connect with you?
If you want to see some of my silly videos, youtube.com/Zebrano Wood Craft. Instagram is probably where I'm most active. So at Zebrano Wood Craft on Instagram, or Facebook Zebrano Wood Craft. Basically, Zebrano Wood Craft everywhere. Or ZebranoWoodcraft.com.
You've cornered the market on Zebrano Wood Craft.
Yeah.
Okay, so I will link to everywhere that Dan has mentioned: YouTube, Instagram, Facebook, and of course his website, so you can connect with him if you want to. In the meantime, I know you're going to get back to drinking tea and making shavings, right? I saw that. Dan, thank you so much for being my guest. Thank you for being so free with helping the Etsy community and just contributing by sharing the information that you have and lessons that you've learned, and for taking time out today to come and talk with me on the podcast. I really enjoyed getting to know you more and learn more about your story, and I hope we stay in touch.
Yeah, definitely. Thank you very much for having me. And I'd love to come back sometime, maybe when I nail some of this content creation and when I dominate Pinterest.
Absolutely. Let's do that again. When you figure out Pinterest, please come back and tell us how.
I will, definitely.
And of course, anything else, you're always welcome back to the show.
Great. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. And I thank you for listening to the podcast. I feel like there was something I was going to announce. Yes. Oh, just one more thing. I do go live now. I'm going to say it again. In the Etsy Conversations Facebook group, I will be going live on Tuesdays and Thursdays. You are welcome to join me in one of those live sessions. Mm-hmm. After that, I will be back on the podcast next week. Thank you for listening.
Thank you for listening. You can subscribe to the podcast in iTunes, and while you're there, please leave a review too. Visit convome.com to leave a comment or feedback on this episode.